It was the year 2157 when the aliens known as the Zorath decided to invade Earth. They had conquered hundreds of planets across the galaxy, and their technology was beyond anything humans could imagine. The Zorath had studied Earth for years, and they believed the humans were weak. They were wrong. The Zorath landed in cities across the world. Their ships were enormous, dark, and full of weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. They announced their arrival with loud, terrifying sounds, demanding humanity's surrender. The world trembled, but as expected, the humans didn't give in. They were scared, yes, but they also had something the Zorath didn't understand: hope. For weeks, the aliens advanced, destroying buildings and killing anyone who tried to fight back. But no matter how much damage they caused, the humans kept pushing forward. Strange things started happening. Ordinary people, farmers, teachers, shopkeepers, managed to stop the aliens in ways no one could explain. Soldiers were overpowered, but the civilians kept coming. One such human was a man named Jack. He wasn't a soldier, just a regular guy who worked at a bookstore in a small town. One evening, when the Zorath soldiers marched through his town, Jack didn't run. Instead, he grabbed a slingshot from his garage and went outside. The aliens looked at him with confusion. What is this human doing? They thought. Jack aimed the slingshot at a small device the aliens had on their armor. The rock hit it perfectly, and the alien was stunned. It wasn't a powerful weapon, but it was enough to make the Zorath stop in their tracks. Jack ran. He wasn't a hero, but in that moment, he did what no one expected. The Zorath tried to make sense of what had just happened. They were used to enemies surrendering or being destroyed. They didn't know what to do with these humans who fought with such strange, unpredictable tactics. Jack's act of defiance spread like wildfire. People everywhere started doing whatever they could, throwing stones, using everyday items as weapons, and attacking in ways that were illogical but somehow effective. The Zorath were frustrated, but they were also starting to feel something they hadn't expected: fear. As the days went by, the aliens tried to adapt. They sent in more advanced warriors and weapons, but the humans adapted faster. It wasn't just the soldiers who fought back. Every human, young and old, joined in, using whatever they had. The Zorath began to see that the humans didn't fight to win. They fought because they had something the aliens couldn't understand: the will to survive. One day, in a city that had been devastated by the alien attack, a strange thing happened. The Zorath commander, Zorak, was walking through the ruins when he was confronted by a group of children. They were armed with nothing more than toy guns and an old bicycle. Zorak was about to crush them when something stopped him. The children didn't show fear. They smiled and laughed, even as their world was crumbling. They didn't run. They didn't cry. They just stood there, defiant. Zorak was confused. "Why aren't you afraid?" he demanded. One of the children, a young girl named Lily, looked up and said, "Because we know we can win." "You're not the first thing we've had to fight." The words hung in the air. The Zorath had never encountered a species so willing to fight against impossible odds. The Zorath tried to understand the human spirit, but they couldn't. The more they attacked, the stronger the humans became. Every time they thought they had beaten the humans bounced back even harder. Finally, Zorak called for a meeting with his generals. They had been defeated in more cities than they had won. Their strategy was failing, and the humans were doing something they couldn't understand. They kept coming. They kept fighting back. "Why are we losing?" Zorak asked. One of the generals, a ruthless warrior named Creel, responded, "Because they fight differently. They don't follow rules. They don't give up. We can't predict them." Zorak understood then. The Zorath, with all their advanced technology, had underestimated the most dangerous part of humanity: unpredictability. The humans didn't need advanced weapons or technology to win. They had the strength of their will, their refusal to back down, and their ability to adapt. In the end, the Zorath made a decision. They had tried to invade, tried to conquer, but the humans were too strong, too unpredictable. They couldn't win. The Zorath left Earth that day, defeated and confused. They had learned a painful lesson: humans were weird. But in that weirdness was their greatest strength. And Earth? Earth remained free, a shining example of how sometimes the most powerful weapon is not technology or force, but the spirit of a people who refuse to give up. The Zorath had studied Earth for years before their invasion. They were confident in their victory. After all, they had conquered dozens of planets, and no species had ever stood in their way. But Earth was different. Humans were different. The aliens arrived, their massive ships blocking out the sky. They didn't need to introduce themselves. Their advanced technology and weapons spoke louder than any words. Their plan was simple: take control of the planet by controlling its people. They had perfected mind control technology, a tool that had brought many worlds to their knees. Humans, they believed, would be no different. The Zorath leader, General Zorak, had one goal in mind: to dominate Earth. His forces began to move through cities, using their mind control devices on the population. But there was something they hadn't anticipated. The humans didn't react the way they expected. At first, it seemed simple. They used their mind control devices on the first few humans they encountered. It worked like a charm. The humans froze in place, their eyes glazed over, their minds blank. They followed the Zorath's commands without hesitation. The Zorath smiled, thinking this would be easy. But that's when things started to get strange. As the invasion continued, something began to happen. Humans who were controlled would suddenly snap out of it, shouting and running away, confusing the Zorath soldiers. General Zorak grew frustrated. His mind control device should have been foolproof. Why were these humans so different? One day, in the middle of the city, Zorak tried the mind control device on a young woman named Sarah. He watched closely, confident that this would be another success. Sarah's eyes glazed over, and she stood still, like all the others. Zorak gave her a command to kneel, expecting her to obey without question. But something unexpected happened. Sarah didn't kneel. Instead, she looked around, as if confused. The general tried again, more forcefully. Kneel, but Sarah only shook her head. I don't want to. Zorak was stunned. Why aren't you obeying? He demanded. Sarah smiled, almost as if she was mocking him. Because you can't control me. Zorak's heart raced. He didn't understand. The mind control device had never failed. What was it about humans that made them so unpredictable? They were supposed to be weak and easy to manipulate, but Sarah wasn't the only one. As the Zorath moved through the city, more and more humans began to resist their control. Zorak decided to take a different approach. Instead of using force, he tried a new tactic: subtlety. He sent his best soldiers into the city, disguised as humans, to blend in and try to manipulate the population from within. They were to slowly implant ideas into people's minds, making them think they were thinking for themselves. It was a clever plan. But again, the humans surprised him. They caught on quickly. The moment a human started acting out of the ordinary, they would question themselves. Why am I doing this? They'd ask. This doesn't feel right. It didn't matter how clever the Zorath's methods were. Humans always seemed to notice when something was off. One of the Zorath soldiers, a young recruit named Creel, had been assigned to blend in with the humans. He was sent to a calf where he was supposed to plant the idea in a man's mind that he should obey the Zorath. Creel was certain it would work. But when he sat down next to the man and started to speak, the man looked up at him with a curious expression. What's wrong with you? The man asked. Creel froze. What do you mean? You're not acting normal. Something's off, the man said, staring at him suspiciously. Creel quickly stood up and left, realizing the humans had noticed the smallest details. The mind control tactics that work so easily on other species were failing on Earth. Back in the Zorath Command Center, General Zorak was losing patience. He had tried everything: brute force, subtle manipulation, even threats. But nothing worked. The humans didn't obey. They didn't follow their commands. They questioned everything. The more they tried to control, the more the humans fought back. Zorak called a meeting with his top scientists. They had to find a solution. Why can't we control them? He demanded. One of the scientists, a Zorath named Nira, stepped forward. It's not the technology, General. It's their minds. Humans have a defense we didn't expect. They are constantly analyzing everything around them. They question things, even their own thoughts. It's part of who they are. They're constantly fighting for control. The general was silent for a moment, trying to process what Nira had said. So, it's their minds that make them immune? Yes, General. They have the ability to think critically. They never accept things at face value. It's like their minds are a maze. They can't be trapped. Zorak's frustration grew. He had underestimated the humans. They were supposed to be weak, easily manipulated. But their ability to resist control, their constant questioning and self-awareness, was something the Zorath could never understand. The Zorath had made a terrible mistake. They had tried to invade a species that was not only unpredictable, but also stronger than they had imagined. And in that, the humans had won. The Zorath had conquered planets before, but Earth was proving to be something different. The invasion was well underway, and the aliens had already destroyed major cities and taken control of key territories. But despite their overwhelming force, there was one thing they just couldn't figure out. Snacks.it all started when Commander Creel, the Zorath leader, ordered his team to survey the humans' daily habits. "We must understand how their society functions," he said. "If we can predict their actions, we can crush their spirit." At first, everything seemed normal. The humans woke up, went to work, and followed their usual routines. But then came the breaks. It didn't take long for the Zorath to notice something strange. Humans seemed obsessed with snacks. Cruel soldiers were puzzled. They had observed humans for days, and at every possible moment. "What are these?" asked Zorath Officer Creel, holding up a bag of potato chips. "They are not meals, just tiny pieces of food?" "Yes," Creel replied. "These are what they call snacks. They eat them at all hours, sometimes for no reason at all." He rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "They eat more than they need." Why? The Zorath decided to learn more. They sent scouts to infiltrate human societies, watching closely from the shadows. Their goal was to understand this strange human ritual. What was it about these snacks that seemed so important to the humans? The first scout reported back, "Commander, I have observed a human sitting in front of a glowing box, consuming vast quantities of these snacks. Every time the box makes a noise, the human reaches for more. They eat and eat as if they cannot stop." Krull's eyes narrowed. "Could it be addictive?" he asked. Creel shook his head. "Perhaps, but there is no logic to it. These snacks do not provide any real energy or nutrients. Yet, the humans crave them." The aliens grew increasingly confused. To the Zorath, everything had a purpose, a reason. But this snacking habit didn't make sense. It was not rational. It wasn't even a strategic choice. It was just random. In an attempt to understand, the Zorath decided to hold an experiment. They took a human volunteer, a young woman named Emma, and placed her in a large observation chamber. Emma had no idea she was being watched. She was simply going about her day. Krull issued a command to one of his soldiers. "Give her an endless supply of snacks. Let us see how long it takes before she stops." Emma sat down on a couch, a bowl of chips in front of her. The Zorath began their observation. At first, Emma casually ate a few chips, but then something strange happened. She reached for another handful, then another. After a few minutes, she was eating with no end in sight. "This makes no sense," Creel muttered. "She has already consumed enough food for an entire day. Why does she continue?" Krull said nothing, staring at the screen. He couldn't believe it. "Is she happy?" The soldier nodded. "Yes, Commander. She seems content, almost as if she is being rewarded by each snack she eats." It wasn't just Emma. Soon, the Zorath began seeing the same behavior everywhere they went. Humans of all ages, all walks of life, were engaging in this ritual of snack consumption. They ate while watching their glowing boxes, during meetings, while walking down the street, and even before bed. Krull started to question everything. If humans could behave in such an illogical and unpredictable way, how could the Zorath ever control them? They were supposed to be conquerors, capable of taming any species with their advanced technology. But snacks? What was this strange obsession? In one of the most bizarre moments, Krell's team observed a human family sitting together at a table. They were arguing. But the argument wasn't about strategy, resources, or anything important. No, they were debating which snack was the best. "I told you," one man said. "The chips are better." "Don't be ridiculous," the woman replied. "The cookies are the superior snack. They have the perfect balance of sweetness." The child sitting at the table chimed in. "I think the pretzels are the best." Krell's soldiers could not believe their eyes. A full-blown argument, but it was all about snacks. They could not fathom how such an insignificant thing could cause so much emotional energy. Creel turned to Creel. "Commander, should we destroy their snacks? Would that stop them?" Krell hesitated. He realized that the snacks weren't just food, they were a symbol of something far deeper. They brought the humans joy, comfort, and even unity. If they took them away, it might break the human spirits. But would that even work? "We have underestimated them," Krell admitted. "It's not just food. It's a way for them to feel in control of their lives, to find comfort in a world that's often chaotic. Maybe the snacks are the reason they haven't broken." Creel looked up. "But what if they get more creative? What if they use these snacks to fight back against us?" Krell nodded slowly. He had no answer. The humans had become a puzzle, one he could not solve. "Prepare for the next phase," he ordered. "We move forward, but never forget this. The humans' strange obsession with snacks may be the most dangerous thing we have encountered." It started on a quiet Tuesday morning in a small town in the Midwest. The kind of morning where the world seemed peaceful, and everything was just as it should be. No one knew that today would be different, that the world was about to change forever. Zorath, an alien species that had conquered countless planets, arrived on Earth with one mission: to take control. Their advanced technology, weaponry, and mind control devices made them nearly unstoppable. Humans, they thought, would be an easy target. But they had underestimated one thing: a 12-year-old boy named Max. Max was playing in his backyard, as kids often did, when the sky suddenly darkened. He looked up and saw the massive ships blocking out the sun. His heart raced as he watched the ships land on the streets, their sleek, metallic bodies reflecting the light. The Zorath had arrived. Max wasn't scared, though. He had seen movies about aliens. He knew what they looked like, what they might do. But what he didn't know was that these aliens weren't like the ones in the movies. They were smarter and far more dangerous. Max's mom, hearing the news on the radio, called him inside. "Max, stay here. We have to be careful. They might hurt us." But Max was already thinking. He'd watched a lot of science fiction films, read books about battles and escape plans. He wasn't about to let these aliens take over his world. As his mom hid under the kitchen table, Max ran to the back of the house. He needed a plan. The aliens were everywhere, moving down the streets in perfect formation. Max watched them through the back window. They were using some kind of device to control people, making them walk in a trance-like state. They weren't just invading, they were turning humans into mindless servants. Max took a deep breath. He couldn't let that happen to his family or his friends. He grabbed his bike and pedaled down the street, staying out of sight. He had to get to the old library at the edge of town. It was the only place he knew of where the aliens wouldn't think to look. Max had a secret weapon. It wasn't a laser gun or a high-tech device. It was something the Zorath never expected: human curiosity and creativity. When Max reached the library, he snuck inside, careful not to make a sound. The place was empty, but he knew he didn't have much time. The aliens were getting closer, and they were already starting to patrol the area. He ran up the stairs to the second floor, where the old computers were stored. These weren't the advanced systems the Zorath used. They were outdated and slow, but Max knew how to use them better than anyone. He typed furiously. He hacked into the town's emergency broadcast system. If he could break through, he could send out a message to everyone, giving them a chance to fight back. But first, he needed to outsmart the aliens. Meanwhile, Commander Zorak, leader of the Zorath invasion, was watching from a distance. His troops had already taken control of the surrounding area, and the mind control devices were working flawlessly. He had no idea that a small human boy was about to change everything. Max's hands moved faster on the keyboard as he accessed a local radio frequency. He didn't know exactly what he was doing, but he'd seen enough spy movies to know that if he could send out a message, the aliens might be distracted. The Zorath were too focused on their technology to expect that a simple human child might be able to turn their own systems against them. He hit enter, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, the screen flashed. Target, Zorath mind control signal, the message read. Max smiled. He had done it. He had found the weak link. The mind control devices the Zorath were using relied on a central signal that connected every device to their ships. If he could disrupt it, he could free everyone under the aliens' control. But there was no time to waste. The Zorath would soon realize what had happened. Max quickly typed in a command that would overload the mind control signal. He didn't know what the consequences would be, but he was willing to take the risk. He hit the enter key again. In the streets, people suddenly stopped moving. They blinked, confused, as the trance-like hold the Zorath had on them began to fade. The mind control signal was down. The humans were free. Commander Zorak watched in horror as his forces lost control of the population. "What's happening?" he demanded, slamming his fist against the control panel. "Get those humans back under control." But it was too late. The people, now free of the aliens' influence, began to fight back. They didn't have weapons or advanced technology, but they had something far more dangerous: the will to survive. Max heard the sounds of victory from the streets below. The humans were fighting back, using whatever they could find to defend their homes and families. He smiled to himself. He had done it. The Zorath forces were retreating, their plans in ruins. Commander Zorak, frustrated and confused, ordered his ships to lift off and leave Earth. They had underestimated the human spirit and the creativity of a small boy. They had thought they could control Earth, but it was the humans who had outsmarted them. As the last of the Zorath ships disappeared into the sky, Max stood at the window, looking out at the world. The battle had been won, not with strength or technology, but with quick thinking and courage. And that, Max knew, was what made humans truly unstoppable. The Zorath had watched Earth for years. They had studied its people, its technology, and its history. The planet was strange, its inhabitants even stranger. And they were determined to conquer it, just like they had done with so many others. But there was one thing the Zorath had never expected. Human luck. It all began when the first Zorath ship landed on Earth. The massive craft settled in a small, rural town, casting a shadow over the streets. The townspeople stood frozen, staring at the craft in awe and fear. The Zorath had no interest in subtlety. They had come to take Earth, and they would do it with overwhelming force. Commander Rahl, the leader of the invasion, instructed his soldiers to begin their operations. They moved through the town, using their advanced technology to control the humans. Their mind control devices worked perfectly, and soon, everyone in the town was under the Zorath's control. Except for one person. A man named Joe, who was sitting on a bench near the park, drinking a cup of coffee. When the mind control signal hit him, Joe didn't react. He simply took another sip of coffee, seemingly unaware of the chaos around him. His eyes glazed over for a brief moment, but then he blinked and continued sipping his drink. It was as if the alien's technology didn't even register. Rahl watched from a distance. "Why isn't he reacting?" he muttered. The mind control should have worked. His second-in-command, Zorak, looked at Joe with confusion. "It's as if he's immune." Rahl wasn't the kind to be easily discouraged. He had conquered worlds before. But this was different. The humans weren't behaving the way they should. Joe's lack of reaction seemed like a small thing, but it was the first sign that something was wrong. As the invasion continued, more and more strange things began to happen. The Zorath soldiers tried to take control of a nearby factory. They expected the workers to fall under their influence, but instead, the workers simply stood there and refused to obey. "Why aren't they following orders?" Rahl demanded. They don't seem to care," Zorak said, his voice tinged with frustration. "It's as if they're completely immune to us." Rahl's mind raced. He had never encountered this before. In every other world they had invaded, the inhabitants had obeyed without question. But the humans were different. They seemed to have some kind of luck on their side, an unpredictable force that made them harder to control. The more the Zorath tried to assert their power, the more the humans fought back, often in the most absurd and random ways. A group of soldiers marched into a shopping center, expecting to see people cowering in fear. Instead, a man holding a hot dog stepped forward and tripped over a shopping cart, knocking into one of the Zorath soldiers and causing a domino effect of confusion. "This doesn't make sense!" Zorak shouted. "What is it with these people? They're not supposed to act this way." The Zorath tried everything. They sent their most advanced scouts to infiltrate human organizations, to manipulate them from the inside. But everywhere they went, things went wrong. People stumbled over their own feet, spilled coffee, and accidentally revealed information they weren't supposed to. It was like the universe itself was working against the Zorath. In one particularly strange incident, a Zorath officer named Creel was sent to sabotage a communications tower. He sneaked into a building, thinking he would easily disable the equipment. But when he reached the control panel, he pressed the wrong button by accident, and instead of shutting the tower down, he turned on a loud alarm that alerted the entire town. Creel's eyes widened as he heard the approaching footsteps of humans coming to investigate. "How did I?" he stammered. "Why is everything going wrong?" Zorak muttered, watching the chaos unfold. He had never felt so out of control before. It wasn't just small accidents. It was as if human luck had an uncanny ability to throw the Zorath off balance. Every time they tried to take control, something random and unexpected happened. A human would slip on a banana peel, or a piece of equipment would malfunction at the perfect moment. The aliens could never keep up. Raal was growing desperate. "We need to find the source of this. This luck. There must be something we're missing." But the more he searched, the more he realized there was no explanation. It wasn't a force that could be measured or predicted. It was just there. A strange, unpredictable element that had thrown their entire invasion plan into chaos. As the days went on, the Zorath found themselves on the defensive. The humans, despite their lack of advanced technology, were winning. The Zorath had underestimated Earth's greatest weapon, the randomness of human luck. And then it happened. The final blow. The Zorath's main ship, a colossal craft that had been stationed above the town, was hit by a freak storm. A bolt of lightning struck the ship directly, frying its control systems and causing it to crash to the ground. The Zorath soldiers, already disoriented by the strange turn of events, were thrown into chaos. Raal watched in disbelief as his ship went down in flames. The luck of the humans had won. It had destroyed their most powerful weapon in a single, unpredictable moment. "Impossible," Raal muttered, watching the storm fade and the humans begin to regroup. "We were defeated by luck." As the Zorath retreated, nursing their wounded forces, they realized the truth. They had lost not because of superior strength or technology, but because of the one thing they could never predict: human luck.